So welcome everyone to Wisdom's Chats on Wednesday, the 9th of December. Can you believe it's this year is slowly moving to a close. We usually talk about time going fast, but I don't know, it seems to have gone at a different pace this year. And so our topic for today is around intent and results. So what weighs as more important? And it's, yeah, so it's thinking about, is my motivation, my inner intention about what I do, is that the guiding principle, or is it what I actually achieve? And it doesn't really, what my intention is doesn't really matter. It's more about that I actually did it and I've achieved this. And this came out of our conversation yesterday. And it was the example, and I think what triggered it for me was the example that Steve Carter gave of Michael Jordan, the famous basketball player who was his idol as a 13, 14-year-old boy. Who achieved these remarkable sort of barrier bending feats on the basketball court, and yet discovered recently that he was a horrible human being, and nobody liked working with him, and he was just an awful person. And so that's really where this conversation was stimulated. So Vernay, we don't often start with you, so I'd love to hear your thinking around the topic.
I think it's twofold. I think if you don't have the intention to achieve something, you're not going to achieve anything. So the intention is really an integral part of your achievement. And then there's another two sides to it. When I study for myself. My intention is not to pass the exam, but I have to achieve more than 90. And it doesn't matter what any perception is. That is purely for my inner motivation. Then I know that I've got a grip on the subject that I'm studying. If I don't achieve that, then I have a problem with myself. Nobody else actually cares. As long as I pass, it's not a problem. So I think you've got to have the intention, but the results actually matter in two ways. The way that it matters outwardly is we spoke about charitable works, and naturally you have to have the intention to actually help a situation. But if you don't achieve those results, if you don't manage to feed 30 children on a daily basis, and that was your intention, it doesn't actually matter what your intention was. Only the result matters. Only actually getting food to those children, making sure they eat it, only that result actually matters. You know, that would say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So it's really a balancing. You have to have the intention in order to achieve, but you have to act on those intentions, and you have to get the results that are positive, that you actually wanted, or that have been preset for you. So I think it really goes hand in hand. I really do. Thank you.
Thanks, Renee. That's really great, the way that you've kind of set the groundwork. So it is completely integral, isn't it, in so many ways. And I think you've described it so brilliantly. So thank you. Herman, what are you popped in, and I don't know if I'm catching you early on, but maybe there was something about the topic that struck a chord for you, and you wanted to add some thinking.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Wendy just said, that intention is the motivator. It's actually the only motivator, in my personal opinion. For example, if one of my intentions is to lead a purposeful life, or let me rephrase it. If I want to lead a purposeful life, I need to have an intention in order to go for that. Yet, very often, in my personal opinion, the way might be more important than the actual result. To give you an example, I have an absolute phobia with regards to injustice. I would love to see a real just world, but I know it will not be achieved in my lifetime, and possibly not, it will still take a couple of more generations to achieve that, if ever. But what I believe is to contribute to that idea, to work on it, and do whatever I can in order to work towards a more just world. So without intention, it's not possible, because I wouldn't know what to go for. And as I said, the result may not always be the final goal. Thank you.
Thanks, Herman. I think it takes a certain kind of perseverance, isn't it? When you work towards such a huge goal, like justice in the world, or I think about Edward and, you know, the environment, a green environment, like it's such an enormous principle that the end of it isn't in sight, and yet you work towards it with continued passion and continued investment in that. So yeah, that's just my comments on your input. Thanks, Herman. So Edward, let's come to you and just find out what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Verne nailed it, and she stuck to the script because of her profession. I expect her to stick to the script, which was about intention or results, internal motivation or results. But I think what Steve Carter was talking about was more the difference between the person or the performance. You know, he was blown away by the performance. He wasn't blown away by the person. And that's what I kind of picked up on, really. And it's probably why they say you should never meet your heroes, because they'll always disappoint. And I've been really lucky. I've met quite a few of my heroes and they haven't disappointed. But I think that could be because, except for two of them, Steve Cram and, I've forgotten his name now, a French chef, Raymond Blanc, they've all been ultra runners. And I always think ultra runners are nice people. But it then struck me, I know two ultra runners who've done exactly the same amazing things. One's a lady called Mimi Anderson, who wrote a book, Beyond Impossible. And the other's another lady called Sharon Gator, who wrote The Clock Keeps Ticking. And both of them, one of them set the record for running the length of Ireland first, and then the other one broke it. And then the reverse way round, they did the records for running the length of the United Kingdom. So from John O'Groats to Land's End. And then they also tussled breaking the 7-day treadmill world record. And the titles of the book are quite interesting because The Clock Keeps Ticking is all about Sharon's appalling childhood, where her stepfather was really unpleasant to her, turned her mother against her. And the title comes from the fact that she used to watch the clock tick, because every tick was 1 minute closer to when she could leave home at 16. So her internal motivations are on the book. She's trying to prove herself because of her bad upbringing. Mimi is and Sharon's a lovely, quiet, unassuming person. You wouldn't even know she was there. She's lovely to talk to. Yeah, and a gentle soul. Mimi, Beyond Impossible is the name of her book. She's in pink Mimi always wears pink. Mimi's loud. Mimi's out there. Mimi likes to be the center of attention. Mimi had a nice childhood because her parents were wealthy, except for one thing. She had a nanny who bullied her. And actually, Mimi ended up with anorexia because of her childhood problems. So she's running away from exactly the same type of thing, doing exactly the same things. But Mimi's out there, big, large, and whatever. And I've also seen the nasty side of Mimi. When she did the treadmill record, my business sponsored her. And at the time, I was in partnership with another guy, Philip. And we said we'd help with the record keeping and all that sort of thing. And as luck would have it, she chose while I was in the Kalahari. So Philip had to do all the work. And Philip had to be quite tough with her and quite brutal with her, and probably saved her from doing herself irreparable damage. But it did mean that she didn't break the men's record. She broke the women's record, and she's always held that against him. And there's not one mention in the book of Philip. And she never talks about Philip. But he spent 7 days with only 2 hours sleep a day, so he could record everything she was doing so she could get the record. And I know who I'm going to choose as my hero. So yeah, I think the person is more important than the performance. And we've seen that so many times now, haven't we, with some of our stars, some of our whatever, stories of child abuse have come out, and they're now pariahs. So I think the person is far more important than the performance. And I've gone slightly off topic, but I think it was what Steve Carter was referring to in the first place.
It all is part of the topic. Your thoughts and your ideas, that's what it's all about. It's called free flow conversation for a reason. And so I'm not going to ask. So Trevor Carter, you've just moved yourself. I'll give you 5 minutes to settle yourself, and then so I'll come to Trevor. Are you
with that chainsaw was to make sure that you guys could not hear me. And
oh,
been watching him put the ladder up against the carport, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then he started hitting that thing, and it wouldn't start. So I thought maybe it's not going to start, but he was intent to get the outcome.
he was intent
to get me to move. So yeah, I think Vinay, you make a very interesting point, as does Edward. So I'm going to talk about cancer today. I'm going to talk about HIV. I'm going to talk about two things that have been around the world for so long, and yet we cannot find a vaccination for these things, a cure for these things. And yet, a year ago, along comes this little thing called Corona. And a year later, hell, don't we have a vaccine for everyone to sort out this story? So my real question here is, what was the intent, or who has the intent? And what is the perceived outcome that's being required in the situation? Because Big Pharma love to treat cancer and HIV on an ongoing basis, and yet Corona, they couldn't treat it because they didn't have any solution. Now with the vaccine, they got a solution. So whose intent is it, is what my real question is. What's the behind the reward or the outcome or the why are you doing it? How are you going to measure that performance, and who's that performance important to? So it's funny that we've got a vaccine from 3 of the largest pharmaceutical manufacturers in the world. And we have 3 of the largest governments in the world saying everyone must get vaccinated. And yet more people die of cancer, more people die of HIV than this little virus is anywhere. So the question I've been asking myself is, whose intent is it, and who's the reward for? Where does it ultimately end up? And yeah, it's interesting when there is collusion and collaboration and shenanigans, because it brings you back to conspiracy theory the whole time, doesn't it, Edward? And you're running through the Kalahari, thinking about that ice cold castle, and you start thinking, was this Zuckerberg's idea, or did Gates plant it in his mind, or was it actually Alibaba on the other side of the woods, and they've tried to play this China-America hardball game? Meanwhile, it's a collusion game of the highest order for us to be brought under control as minions. And yeah, so performance. My question is, are you going to take the vaccine? Because if your intention is to take the vaccine, you must know what the outcome of your intent is going to be at the end of the day. But you may be able to travel, and you may be able to get your pension, and you may be able to, but yeah, I think if we have wisdom, we have to start standing up against these intentions and potential outcomes. And you guys have got the platform, so I'm going to start ranting a lot about intentions. And this bloody oak with his thing. Now my washing machine's about to go into its hard spin, so I'm going to crack out right now before my intention is lost.
Trevor, thank you. I just love, building up this great, wonderful conspiracy where we are simply the victims of these vast mega organizations colluding together. And so, yeah, I think let's get the juices flowing. Trevor, what's your response, and what are your thoughts around intention, results, performance, people?
So I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with Ed not sticking to the script as he usually does. And for Trevor going off wandering on a meandering, I don't know, I can't even call it a script because I don't think he planned what was in the end. But I think the answer is, Trevor, for you is the singular word is incentive. Who's got the greater incentive to achieve what particular results might help you get closer to the answer. But I'd like to just go back to the script because I'm pedantic. I've always stuck to the script in everything that I've ever done, and that's why I like Vernay. And that is, now I can't remember, what was your question? Right, what's more important, intention or results? And I do not believe you can get to results without the stepping stones of intention and action. So, I mean, we're getting close to New Year's Eve, and we all have the greatest intentions in the world to run a long distance race like Ed, to get the running shoes on, and to lose a couple of kgs. And what happens to those intentions a couple of weeks later? For most people, they're out the window. So someone said the road to hell is paved with great intentions. I'd love to analyze what that is, the road to hell. I think intentions are just ideas. And that you've added something, oh, I'd love to achieve that. But for most people, they never ever put the action step behind it, the doing behind their intentions. And then, of course, there are good results and bad consequences, I think, to intentions, unintended consequences. And I suppose whatever action you take or whatever intention you have can result, because no one can actually foretell the future. So you have no idea the road that you're actually taking down with your good intentions, whether they actually result in excellent results. And I was, there are a couple of things. I think law and insurance. So Trevor Carty, you'll love this because,
law and insurance seems to be based on intention as opposed to result. So some guy develops a knife. Why did he develop that knife? Did he develop that knife to actually stab someone in the back, or so for murderous purposes, or did he develop that knife to actually cut a slice of bread? Same thing. Whatever his intention was, would have to be sorted out by a court of law, dependent on the end result. If someone lies down with a couple of slices of bread and they've got their throat slit, the court of law has got to work out who was responsible for this, the developer of the knife or the individual who actually utilized the knife for their intentions. And I think that's what insurance is all about. Insurance is about trying to assess whether people have got good intentions on their claims, or whether they have bad intentions on their claims, and what was their intention in taking the insurance out, or what was the intention of the insurance? Was it designed to actually pay for someone else's tree falling onto your house, or not? And was it about liability? So Trevor Cartier, I mean, he went down a road that I didn't expect him to go down. I thought he was going to come through about how important the foundation of intention is to the development of insurance policies. I just look around and I think law has got out of control, and that people are making absolute fortunes at the moment on political figures' intentions, whether they are good or they're bad. And I don't think there's a good politician anywhere in the world. So whether I'm going to be taken out for the unintended consequence of that particular statement, I have to turn around and say, wasn't my intention. I was just sharing some thoughts, my opinion.
Thank you. Yeah, you see, my opinion. That's what this is all about. Is what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And so it's raised some interesting thoughts. And so I've got random thoughts that are coming from all different directions. And one of the ideas that came out of this from me is my husband and I, for light relief, are watching a Netflix program called The Good Place. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's a comedy. So it's the premise starts off with a lady dies, and she ends up being sent to the good place, and then discovers that, and she realizes she doesn't belong there. There was nothing she did on earth that deserved her being in the good place. And then eventually meets a couple of other people who thought they deserved to be in the good place, but actually should not have been in the good place at all. And one of the ladies was this beautiful, tall Indian woman who spent her entire life raising billions of dollars for charities. And so she thought that earned her a right, earned her place in the good place, only to discover that actually she is meant to be in the bad place, because everything she did was for her self-interest. And I just thought it was just an interesting idea that is being put, that you can achieve great things and wonderful things, but your reason for doing it could be questionable. And does that matter? If you've done great good, does it matter? And I think one of the things that I've realized is that your intent or your motivation or the reason behind what you've done, and this might be off topic, I don't know what's on topic and what's not, but anyway, but the reason behind what you've done leaks. People see the purpose that you bringing to this. And that's why people hate salespeople. because they feel like they are being bombarded and that this person is trying to sell me something. And the minute that you have, and I've seen it with people when they're desperate, and they have to I have to sell this widget, or my business is going down, or I can't pay myself. And that desperation comes through. And so the response then is, you're not, and I don't know whether I'm saying now that your intent leaks and then you don't get the results, or whether you get the results and then eventually the intent comes back and bites you. And it's things like being patronizing, that I'm helping, but I'm really doing it because I feel good about myself. And that patronizing spirit actually does eventually eke away at the results, because people see it, and they respond to it. And then the last thing I want to say, and again, I just say these random thoughts. My husband and I, okay, we've been married 34 years on Sunday. We might have had a few fights in our lives. Yes, thank you. I will take that. Honestly, big kudos. I think. But I'm just saying, in 34 years, we might have had more than our fair share of arguments and full-on fights. And one of my big bugbears is, but I didn't mean to. Like, that excuses everything. Just because you feel hurt and devastated and upset, it doesn't matter, because I didn't mean it. Well, the result is I am upset. You've done something wrong. Just because you didn't mean it doesn't mean it didn't have that result. So there are definitely connections, as Renee started, right, between your intent and the results. They are integrally linked. And so that's where I leave the topic. And now I don't understand that. Yeah. To me, it's a perfectly logical, this whole thing of women are emotional and men are logical. To me, it's a perfectly logical argument that just because you didn't mean it doesn't mean it didn't have an impact. To me, there's no emotion in that. It's perfectly logical. Okay, so topics for tomorrow. What struck you from the conversation today that you would like to pick up tomorrow? You want to say something, Trevor?
Yeah, there was something you said about Steve Carter. So I wasn't in on that discussion yesterday. And it was about his hero, who was it, Michael Jordan. Yes. And holding up his hero, and then suddenly something came out that completely blew him. And I think Ed was going down the same route as well. And I have this view that everyone is flawed. So really, you should never be hero worshipping individuals, because sooner or later their flaws are going to come out. So maybe we should discuss around the makeup of individuals. And if I have the view that everyone is flawed, do people agree with that, or do they not agree with that? Should people be goody two shoes like Vernay is, who doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, doesn't do any of these things? Or might we discover something else about, as she's having her vodka in her coffee there, might we discover something else about Vernay that just completely blows us out the water? Is that a topic we can talk about?
I'd love to talk about that, and I'd love to frame it though in terms of heroes, because I think we can idolize certain people, and then what makes them our hero, and I think that would encapsulate what you're talking about, this, because it will bring in the whole issue of role modeling as well. So what does that mean? If we're all flawed, does that mean we can't be role models? I don't know. I think it is. It's a great conversation. So thank you, Trevor. That's where we'll head off tomorrow. And so have a good day, everybody. Intend good things and get great results.
Cheerio. Bye.
Bye. I didn't mean it.